welcome to the April Curriculum Focus Athletics and Pupil Personnel meeting. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to the board members and the administration for being flexible on the schedule. I am a senior mom this year, and as everybody would know, we are going into the thick of things with senior mom moments. So I did have one yesterday and had asked to reschedule the meeting. I appreciate everybody's flexibility. Joining us tonight is Ms. Radner on behalf of Mrs. Fabiano, who cannot be here. Mr. Leitner is here, and Ms. Alvarez is running a few minutes late, but she asked us to get started. It's going to be a shorter curriculum meeting, but our agenda looks pretty comfortable. For once, we will not be running, out of time, hopefully. I shouldn't jinx that. I do want to start this meeting by saying that as I was walking in, the Science Honor Society is having a field day event. Yep. And I spoke to a very well-spoken gentleman who is the president of that society. Apologize, I will not remember his name. But it gives me great pride to walk into a curriculum meeting. As I see something like that, it's a direct feed-in to the work that we are doing and to the work that you all are doing. So Ms. Rust, an excellent president of the society. I don't know what ties you had into it, but he was very, very well versed in marketing the event to me. Almost made me want to turn direction and go in that direction instead of this. He was very good. But I have obligations to keep. We have a short agenda, but we have a very interesting agenda. And I'm very happy for that, Dr. Roselle. We have the summer reading list back on. So we're going to start with Dr. Roselle. All yours.
All right, so very minimal changes for the past, but anyone new who may be joining us, our K through 12 summer reading. Each summer reading packet begins with a parent letter that shares the district philosophy surrounding literacy, that we want students to choose books that they are interested in reading, to read from a variety of genres, and to consume media, whether it's podcasts or listening to audiobooks as well, because that does contribute to developing our comprehension. So starting with K-5, the list is organized with picture books first. Picture books being text that parents are going to read to children, and then it goes into different genres. Each of these books are recommendations. They have been compiled through a few years from my office, from recommendations by teachers, the Monroe Township Public Library, media specialists, and also school library journal best of lists. We have included those as well. And so those go through different genres, and then on the last page are recommended authors. I was recently shopping for family members and went into Barnes & Noble. I had a digital copy of this list, so I was able to, ask someone there either for specific titles or for specific authors there. So we do try to keep it as user-friendly as possible. And we work very closely with the Monroe Township Public Library. They have copies of these texts, which is why we try not to make significant changes year to year, because they do invest quite a bit of money to having multiple copies available. Any changes, any new titles are highlighted in yellow for the committee to be able to see what updates have been made. That's the K-5 list. The grade 6 list is very similar. We do ask grade 6 students to complete some activities about the book that will help them when they get back into school, because we really use the summer reading to build a community of readers in grades 6 through 12, all grades, but really in grades 6 through 12. So there are some options for students to kind of engage with their reading. That's on the second page of the document. And then again, it is genre-based lists. So middle school, I'm scrolling through, has science fiction and fantasy, nonfiction, realistic fiction, graphic novels. And then new this year, at a department meeting, teachers had mentioned students really like humor. And we hadn't had a separate section of humor. There's humorous science fiction and fantasy, humorous graphic novels, but we created a specific section for humor, so that entire section is new. And then we did add a few titles to the nonfiction list as well. And then continuing in grades 9 through 12, grade level lists. Anything highlighted in yellow is new. We did replace some titles that the teachers just felt were a little stale, or titles that students really hadn't read in the past couple of years. None of the texts are required reading, they are suggested. What we really do want though is that students are coming into class in September having read multiple texts so that they can engage in the activities that their teachers have planned. AP courses, so AP Language and Composition, which our grade 11 students take, or AP Literature and Composition, which our grade 12 students take, do have required readings, and that is to help pace the AP courses. It really helps students to kind of get a jump start on that curriculum for the year. AP Seminar and AP Research also have summer work that is hyperlinked at the bottom there. Before these go live, once the board approves all of these lists, I will test all of the links that are embedded in the documents and make sure that everything is good to go. I send them to the schools, I send them to the public library, and the documents are also linked in a Blackboard Connect that will go out in June, July, and August for parents. Any questions on our summer reading program?
Charlie, did you have a question you want to start with? All right, so I have comments.
Okay.
But I'm glad you pointed out that humor is completely new because it wasn't highlighted. So I was paying attention. I was short of time, so I was paying attention to the highlighted part because I've been reviewing these for a few years, so I knew the old one. I'm going to start with your high school list.
Okay.
I am a diehard fan of Atomic Habits by James Clear, so I love that you added that in there because I've been trying to get my kids to listen to the audiobook. Now, I can now say it's a recommended reading. Please read. The lecture by the Navy SEAL, that's a great addition. Make your bed, right? It's amazing. I have not seen the links yet for the seminar and research, but I will do that before the board meeting. If I have any questions, I might bring it to the board meeting, Dr. Lee. Sorry, I was pressed for time. The humor section is a great addition. I love the diversity and inclusion and you've done it previous years also, but it's a very good feeling to see that in our recommended reading. So I don't have any questions. I only have compliments to give here today. But I would love to open it up for questions to the fellow board members. Ms. Ratner, go ahead.
Sure. So I just wanted to ask, do the teachers or media specialists in the schools go through the list with the students so that they sort of know about the different options when they go to select them?
That's a great question. So I do send the list to the teachers and I encourage them to kind of go through some of the lists or at least the organization of the lists.
Okay.
We also bring in, sometimes it's Emily Mazzoni, sometimes it's Becky or Lynette from the public library, and they will come in and do book talks at different levels.
Okay.
So Emily is more of the teen librarian, Becky and Lynette are more of the children's. They'll go in and do book talks. The media specialists are also involved in that as well. And I will say every summer, because is my contact information that's on the list, I will have parents who reach out to me, like, can you make a recommendation, or do you have a question about this, or things like that, and I'm happy to make book recommendations or things like that as well.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions?
So one more thing I wanted to add as well is that students who qualify for Learning Ally, which is a nonprofit organization that provides human-read audiobooks, those are indicated with an asterisk on all of the documents. And if parents whose children are eligible for Learning Ally need any help, they can reach out to their child's case manager, they can reach out to me, and we'll make sure that they're set up for success over the summer with that tool.
But to clarify, all other students are expected to read physical book, not listen to the audiobook.
So
or is there any guidelines on that?
So there really isn't. I do encourage physical reading of text as well. However, consuming audiobooks, the same parts of your brain that are activated when you are reading a print book light up when you are listening to an audiobook. So the comprehension, particularly for reluctant readers or students who may have have dyslexia or may have an other impediment to access to text, listening to books is a way to ensure that their comprehension, we don't create a comprehension gap. So yes, read books that are accessible to students, and you can go to different reading lists. So for example, if you're in ninth grade and those might be inaccessible to a ninth grader, take a look at the middle school list, or things like that. But also to leverage audiobooks, listen to podcasts, things like that as well. Read magazines, that as well.
Agreed, I'm 100% there with you on that. For the benefit of the community members that are listening in, I do want to say, like you said, after the board meeting and the board members approve this reading list, it will become accessible on our website.
Correct.
And early access is to your advantage. Like Dr. Roselle shared, we work with the Monroe Township Library. And for those of you that do not know, the library creates dedicated shelves for every grade level with these books. Earlier you go, the higher the chances that you can get the books that your child would like to read. The later you go, you're left with fewer options. So if you have an enthusiastic reader, you're probably off the hook as a parent, but if you have reluctant readers, you might want to expose them to the list earlier on and get to the library earlier on. And that way you wouldn't have to walk into Barnes and Nobles and spend some money. So that was just a little PSA for community members that are listening in. And these lists will be accessible as soon as the board votes them through. So that was our first agenda item. Any questions, any comments? We can move on. Excellent. Sorry, I did skip. I read summer reading for some instance. So you have.
We all get very excited about summer reading, so.
I have to admit, these days I've become more of an audiobook person just because I'm always multitasking. Summer programming update, Mr. Moralda, all yours.
Thank you, and actually we can send this down to our special ed team down there.
Oh, that reminds me, I'll take this moment. We do have a new administrator in the room, so Dr. Lehman, would you please do the honors?
We want to welcome our new special ed supervisor, Mr. Sam Algoni. Is that it? Yeah. How do you say your last name? Angoni. Yes, Angoni. And he wants to take a moment to introduce himself. So welcome aboard, Sam.
And have a seat. You're right.
Yes.
And introduce yourself, please. Thank you. Welcome, by the way, too.
Thank you all. It's such a warm welcome. I'm really happy to be here in Monroe. I'm looking forward to working with each of you. Thank you.
Good luck to you. Great team.
He brings a wealth of experience from multiple districts. He has experience at the elementary, the middle school level, and we're looking forward to working with you and supporting our staff and, your engagement in this committee as well, as we bring in some of the topics related to the department. So fantastic. And welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Monroe, Mr. Moralda, all yours.
Thank you. So, last night we had a very, very long, discussion on, the evolution of the summer program. Particularly settled on, what we talked specifically about summer enrichment and summer events. The one area we did not discuss was, again, one of the original installations when we had the ESSER funding, which was summer remediation or summer school. Historically, and really for the past 5 years, our summer school has run and we've enjoyed a very successful pass rate and a high degree of success working with our students over the summer in that capacity. However, we were acutely aware of the fact that the overwhelming majority of our students were obtaining summer school services elsewhere, pretty much exclusively online. And through a system that we did not govern nor really verify that would align to the needs and the vision of the school, to put it politely. We held pretty steadfast to our philosophy that we loved the idea of in-person summer remediation. When I say summer remediation, let me just clarify. Anybody that fails a course for the year with an average between 55 and 64. And so we always describe those students that they were close, right? They were in the game most of the year and they just need a little bit more to get themselves to the finish line. And then, so we ran the program very well, thanks to the staff that we would hire, which were all Monroe instructors, and the supervisors would work with them and set some expectations to make sure we were able to finish the summer, give the child credit, and get them back on track in September. And the nice thing about it, doing it in-house, was that we knew that the students were being taught in alignment with each individual department's expectations. So we were very proud that it was working. However, you're only servicing a very small percentage of the students, and the main reason why, and the feedback we were getting why, is that the program was not very accessible to the Monroe learner over the summer. Many of our students work. Many of our students are responsible for childcare for siblings. Many of our students are involved in a variety of activities, whether they be athletics, religious, performing arts, things like that. And we were not naive to the fact that in this 21st century arena, there should be some sort of flexibility. So we looked around at a bunch of models. Coincidentally, at the time, Dr. Roselle was working with a solution to some of the challenges within her departments and uncovered a model that we believe could be leveraged into a solution for summer remediation. It is a virtual delivery that is designed specifically for summer remediation. But what's unique about this platform and various platforms within this model is that it allows the district to retain control over the delivery, the front and back end of the courses. We've discussed this and some of the things that Dr. Roselle had seen working for her and her teachers and her students. And we thought, after meeting with a couple representatives and discussing it with Dr. Lehman and Dr. Higgins at the high school, and Dr. Szymanski as he was transitioning in, obviously, we thought that there would be a significant benefit to the Monroe students with this. And the model, which is still under development, but we wanted to bring it here tonight because it would be a pivot from what we had done in the past, would be a virtual model. However, there'd be ongoing embedded support along the way, not unsimilar to the way we run the DLE, or I'm sorry, the digital learning experience here at the high school, with the exception that it would be offsite. So what we think that this would allow us to do is, one, maintain our control of how the summer remediation is being delivered, governed, and the students are being treated. You know, if a student's taking an online course, let's say with one of the other services, and they send an inquiry, we don't know who's on the other side. If a student's taking one of our online courses, they send an inquiry, we will be on the receiving end of that. And we will make sure that the work they're doing is in alignment with each individual supervisor's expectations. So when they do arrive back in school in September, we at least know that we were the last people to touch them along their academic remediation journey. We can operate within the same window as our summer advancement program, with the difference being our students will no longer be tied to a certain time and place in the building. We're still developing this, but included in our vision with that embedded ongoing support would be on-site instructional support optional for students 1 day a week. So if a student needed specific one-on-one instruction or support for whatever reason, we would be prepared to offer that in our model. To deliver this program, and Ms. Boyer, you may recall, we discussed this as one of our areas of concern in the last year of After Action. What we do believe the solution could address all those areas. Specifically, we can expand our course catalog. Historically, we've been limited to language arts 1, 2, and 3, physics, biology, and the 3 math courses, algebra 1, 2, and geometry. We believe we can break that open. So historically, when we've had to say no to many kids, you have to find it elsewhere because we're not offering it, we will no longer have to be there, which is obviously a benefit for us. It does offer a recommitment to the digital virtual learning model, which obviously is still very important in this day and age, but it is not going to be, we're not selling them then down the river and saying, log in, we'll see you again in August. There's going to be a Monroe Township certified instructor and administration overseeing this all along the way. Obviously, the enhanced flexibility for students and families, but also our staff. So we could execute this program with a high degree of fidelity without losing the comfort and the safety net of this Monroe Township staff supporting us along the way. This model, because of the new way we would execute it, would allow us to reduce tuition costs to families. While we haven't settled on a price point yet, because obviously we're still developing it, we will no longer be hamstrung by some of the fixed costs that operating this program brought about, which were significant historically. Obviously, the last two points are the ones that we think are the most exciting. Well, I'll throw in the last 3 points for the family program. The fact that we can control this is everything. You know, when we would meet with our staff over the summer, particularly our summer school staff, you know, we would often scoff with all due respect at some of the other third-party services that students were taking because we would joke, well, we just have to reteach these kids in September anyway. And that, you know, that's obviously a problem. So we want to regain control of our summer learning even more so. We took a great gigantic step forward with summer advancement. We know that we have a staff that's willing and capable of learning and supporting these students that need a little extra help over the summer. And we think it's going to offer more opportunities for more students, which obviously we know. And it's not just because, and I just want to be clear, this is not to help the kids that are going on vacation or the kids that just don't feel like waking up. You know, there are a lot of kids that can't get here in the summer. Most families these days have working households. Many of our students have to take care of younger siblings. And it just, so we think that this is a win for students in every aspect, particularly because we are not outsourcing their education. And the last bullet point, and you know, like we had described last night, actually stole one of Dr. Roselle's nerd terms when she said the summer program has been like a sandbox for us to develop new ideas and new programs. You know, we do believe, and Dr. Roselle, if she'd like, she can elaborate on this a little bit further, maybe talk about the work we've done through some of these platforms already. We do believe that this model could create more opportunities even beyond the summer, particularly in content areas that we struggle to staff, and also through our alternative pathways program. So if executed successfully, which Kelly has done, Dr. Roselle, sorry, has already done in a small pilot mode already this year, we think it could really open up the door for even further opportunities for our high school students that are not limited to remediation, possibly even obtaining credits and courses that we may not offer already, things along those lines. So, I don't know, Kelly, if you want to just talk about how you used it and how it worked.
So just to give you an idea, this was through the ESL program. One of the challenges that our multilingual learners at the high school level will face, particularly when they come to us at 16 or 17 years old, and they may have had limited or interrupted schooling, it is a race against the clock to ensure that students earn the credits necessary to earn their diploma. And we're limited in that time. So there are situations where a student may not have had the background in a particular course, they didn't earn credit in that course, or they came to us late and we have their core courses completed, but there's an elective that they may need credit for. So in working with colleagues in other districts, looked at the solutions that they were offering to their students. Many districts who have much larger multilingual learner populations than we do. And I vetted the two companies that districts are using, and one is far superior to another. One, because it offered translated closed captioning for students. It offered translated resources for students in many languages. It offered the ability for students to speed up, slow down, and it is human delivered content. These are teachers who are delivering the content, and they are modeling pieces for students. We also have complete control, as Mr. Maralda had alluded to, over the front end. So we can embed our own content, our own assessments or our own lessons, but we can also use what is already created. We can pace students. So whereas I won't mention other names, but some of the virtual programs that students attend over the summer, they may click through and earn what they need to earn. We can control that pacing. We can see how long a student spent on an assessment, how many attempts did they take at specific questions. And we have all that data, not only to determine the student mastery of the content, but also to pass that data along to a teacher in September so that they know what a student's strengths and areas for growth might be. So I did a very small group pilot, worked very closely with Mr. Sample, who is one of the senior counselors this year, with 2 students. They found the content to be comprehensible. They found the pacing and the delivery to be something that they were able to really learn. And I'm very excited to be able to leverage this tool for our summer programming, but for other options in the future, because there really are so many different ways that we could leverage the tool.
So we're deliberately not saying any company names right now, because we're still.
That was my first
Yeah,
question.
so obviously, and like last thing, there's a negotiation, process that goes on with that. But the idea that would also, in anticipation of the next question,
Let's see if you get it right.
this program will come at no cost to the current budget. This program.
You did get it right.
Yeah, so this new initiative is being funded purely, as all of our new pilots have been. But however, with in mind that, and this is something that Dr. Lehman, sobers us up with quite regularly of late, especially when we get new crazy ideas. If we're gonna install something new, it has to be sustainable. So, we have to make sure when we introduce something that if the summer program, let's just say, stops producing the revenue that it does, we have to make sure that we don't have to walk anything back as a result. So, I want to be clear that when we introduce things and we were able to pilot them and fund them through atypical mechanisms. We make decisions on things with the idea that this could be something that could be sustained over time. So that's why we look at these things and whether or not how it's fit in our current operations. We do believe that this model offers a complete flip of what the financial model looked like previously under the previous model. I don't want to overcommit, but we do think, and we're very confident that this would be a sustainable solution indefinitely. That would be a part of our summer program moving forward. Dr. Roselle explained much more eloquently than I could the fidelity of the system and the front end work that went into evaluating these potential solutions. Obviously everything is aligned to state standards and everything like that. That goes without saying. We wouldn't even bring it here if it doesn't. So, basically our purposes for being here tonight, other than just to field any questions you may have about summer remediation, would be just, to discuss the idea of pivoting to what once was a traditionally exclusively in-person model to something different that we think aligns a little bit more with what Monroe students will benefit from, but also with what best suits their needs in the 21st century society.
Before I get into my questions, Mr. Morales, would you just share in a few sentences, what does our current remedial model look like for anybody in high school?
So we run 2 sessions throughout the month of July. It's 60 hours that they need to complete. We break it over 5 weeks and we build in 2 makeup days on the back end. Students are committed 2 absences because they need to hit that 60 hours. So that's where we have those makeup days on the back. Those originated because we started this during COVID, so we were anticipating extended absences, and we kind of just held on to those makeup days because things like, well, I couldn't come in because my 3-year-old brother needed someone to watch him, and I was like, how do I avoid a kid's summer remediation for that? And we started to realize that we really needed to start to evolve on that. But so the current model was the first session came in at 8, they left at 10:30. So 2.5 hour sessions, they gave the teacher a little break in between, and then a second group would come in, and we do at least 10:50 to, we were out by 1. And then, pass fail model. There was a tuition point, of just under $500, I believe. 385, yeah, so it was right around just under $400. Even with that fee, which was, it was significantly lower than in-person instruction, it was higher than virtual. So that was that, we brought them in, we got them out, and then we had them in front of fully certified teachers, and in many instances, an ICR therapy. So that was the original model.
We were able to address all, subject areas that needed?
No, so we were limited to, what I had mentioned before, language arts 1, 2, and 3, and I think even a couple years, we decided to not run one of the language arts courses just because we couldn't afford it. When I say that, we knew that there were other options for the child at that time. We always ran free math courses because particularly mindful of the sequencing there, and obviously bio and physics because of the similar. But that was it. We never ran a chemistry course. There were a couple occasions, Danielle, we ran, right, world history, but we didn't run that last. No. That was it. So pretty much the only courses that were consistently offered were math and science.
And not running it depended on students needing it or interested in it or staffing issues?
Staffing was never an issue. But we would have a situation where, and this is where we started to kind of change the idea of our model, where I had 3 language arts teachers, 5 language arts students. 2 of them needed language arts 2, 1 of them needed language arts 1, 1 of them needed language arts 3. So we worked amongst ourselves to help all of those students, but there's no point, I'm not gonna have 4 teachers sit there. And the teachers are super understanding about it. So yeah, it was very, under-enrolled. It's not that we cheer, we root for enrollment, I just want to be clear, but.
But is it because the enrollment was low because students were taking it outside?
Oh, yes, and I don't know, Jim, you may be able to tell better than I know, you're just looking over the data now, but I would say dozens.
More than 3/4.
More than 3/4 of students eligible for
The online.
Thank you.
And I'm already asking questions, so I'll just continue. I know you don't want to disclose the name of the platform, but is it the same platform that is being piloted right now by Mr. Semple?
Good job.
Through the ESL, yes, it's the same platform that's so I've
being
used it
considered right
from
now.
September. I have 2 students taking 4 different courses, started in September. And I've been the one managing the back end of it and the front end of it and things like that. So I've gained some fluency with the tool, and had vetted the most common 2, solutions that districts are using.
When are we looking to start this? Is it this summer? So we have enough time to train our staff for the front-end content perspective and
Yes.
back-end management?
So
It's just a pilot with 2 students right now.
we're ready to go. And the PD part professional development consideration was part of our
Great.
preliminary discussion.
I love when you said that you wouldn't have brought it here if you had not checked all the boxes. So I really do appreciate that. The price point that you shared, we were charging the students who needed this, right? And now they will be paying for this virtual service, but we're saying there'll be a cost savings to our students.
There'll be a cost savings to the students, and they will continue to pay the Monroe County Board of Education directly. They are not paying another organization
Okay,
for tuition.
okay. I'm gonna open it up. Mr. Zeichner, you had a question.
Yeah, I just have one, and that is, I imagine you have some kind of evaluation, designing a new program to give you some feedback in terms, and perhaps the board, in terms of, how the program's going, because I know you're constantly making changes and you're constantly doing new things, and this is a great addition to it. Just moving it now another step, in the process, which is.
So I'm glad you brought that up, and it's something that Dr. Lehman and I have discussed now that these programs, and Ms. Gaskell and I discussed it briefly when we launched the summer advancement program. Inevitably, these programs evolve and change annually, but we're at the point where we're positioned to construct a metric to evaluate programs, not just performance listen, if they sell out, that's not just because the tickets sell out doesn't mean the program's great. Yeah, that means that we made money, but we need to be able to evaluate efficacy and also staff performance. And that would be the natural next step, and as this program extends into the summer. Well, obviously, there's a little bit of contractual red tape and stuff like that we have to navigate through.
And having spoken to you, one-on-one, I was really impressed with where you're going with it.
Well, I have to give credit to Dr. Rozelle,
I congratulate.
he brought the idea, and we as a team knew that we had to come up with a solution to remediation. And at risk of tipping the hand of who the organization was before, we actually were able to meet with them down at school boards previous festival. So this process started back then. And when we started to evaluate these solutions, and we just had the benefit of Dr. Rozelle working very closely with the solution that emerged as.
The money we spent on the school board conferences was very well spent.
But, that is, in that time, it also gives us opportunities to be allowed vendors and
Yes.
also talk to other administrators that have done business with organizations like that.
It's not working both ways, with vendors, with your peers. Ms. Alvarez, you had a question.
I may have missed this. The virtual component, is that done by our teachers or different?
How should I explain it? Go ahead.
The virtual component is live teachers. They are not our teachers. They were contracted through the company to deliver the content. So they are pre-recorded videos. So using our COVID learning terms, it is asynchronous. So one student may wake up and do the lesson at 8 o'clock in the morning, probably not. Another may be doing it at 11 p.m. But they progress through the content. They are not able to skip around. But it is that company's employees that do it.
And just to piggyback on that, excuse me, I'm sorry. Our vision for that is going to be designated Monroe teachers to oversee. We don't know, honestly, how we're gonna parse it out yet, but there would hypothetically be teachers available to student for what Dr. Rozelle coined as embedded support, and I like that phrase. So if a student is enrolled in Spanish 2, summer remediation, and is going through the content, but just feels like they just need to bounce off something off of one of our certified staff members, that option will be there for them. In addition to, in the original model that we are proposing, that we're still working out, there would be an availability of on-site, face-to-face instruction in office hours, where students would be have the opportunity to come in and work with one of our staff members if there's a particular area of trouble. We want this to feel like a Monroe program.
I just want to interject too for a second. I think having the Monroe teacher oversee it and being, almost kind of like a pseudo mentor for them and try to encouraging them and going through that as opposed to just an online course where there's really nobody monitoring or going through. And in those cases, sometimes the parents are working or not working and they're just like, oh, good, they're getting through this. We've had cases where a student has gone through supposedly a 60-hour program and all of a sudden a weekend and done 1 or 2 and from the site, yes, they finished it, but the question is, did they learn anything? And from the standpoint of my department in particular, if you don't learn the previous course and you don't learn the content, whether you get the credits or not by trying to bypass things, that's not going to help you in the next class that you have to take. And so I think this is really going in the right direction. They're the students that struggle. They didn't pass it for a reason. So they might have been overwhelmed. They might have been struggling. They might have been disengaged. So it was harder to get that group into the school physically. But if we can do something where we're helping them and we're monitoring them and they say, hey, I noticed that you weren't on in the last 3 days. Is everything okay? What's going on? Or I noticed that you did 3 units in 1 day. Are we going too fast? What do you think? And I think that side of it from the almost like the counseling monitoring side is going to be like, not that somebody's watching me, but somebody cares about me.
Yeah.
And so somebody cares about me and they're going through and wait, they really want me to pass this. And I think it might be an encouraging part.
It benefits everybody when these students pick up, right? And not only that, it's benefits guidance, right? If we're scheduling things, but not only that, when you think about the students that are failing within that range, that could have been just they had a couple bad weeks, when they're failing by that small margin. So the idea of a very humanistic approach to this program is something that and which is why we love the in-person exclusivity. We feel like this is the best compromise we can offer. And the one thing that I don't want to overstate that Dr. Roselle mentioned that this platform will deliver as it relates to special ed, because we're not naive to know that.
We'd like to interject.
Yeah, no.
Because we are using that, we're using it right now.
Yeah, so,
And I think what
Go
was
ahead.
great as part of the supervisors meeting, which I didn't attend, but Ms. Roldan, she heard all of this information. So our student information is confidential, and it was very specific to a student and the needs. And we were looking for something like this. So we do have a student, and they are getting all of the emails. And
Yes.
every day it's very, and I'm gonna let Jen really talk about it, because it just started about a week ago, and we mentioned it to Dr. Lehman, so we could see that it would be approved, that we could utilize this also. And we have one student right now, so we do have someone, and you're right, it does work very well for us also.
and if before, if you don't mind, Jim,
Sure.
the thought fleets me, which it does often.
You were going
Yes, I
ahead.
was going, so obviously, when we talk about virtual learning, okay, so obviously that doesn't work for all types of learners, we understand that. However, the data that we will have access to as this program progresses will really empower the teachers to be assigned to this and we can triage any problem before it arises. And we don't lose sight of IEPs prior to the summer. We're very thorough ahead of time with the staff to make sure that we're in place. And, again, Jen, I don't know, you obviously, if you've had success with it, we feel pretty good. And that's like you said, we wouldn't have brought it here, but Jen, if you want to talk about it, that'd be great.
For our side, from the special education side, we will probably always have the company teachers kind of be monitoring the whole thing. However, we have access to see where the student is at in it. When I assigned the student up, I was able to upload the IEP so that they were able to provide all the accommodations, modifications that they were supposed to for the student. It's the same thing like Dr. Roselle and Ms. Gasco is saying, they follow up with them. I just checked on the student yesterday afternoon and he happened to go in and do there's an initial thing that you go on, like an orientation video almost of how to use the program. He had completed that, but he hadn't signed on again. So there were already letters from them 2 days later, like asking, hey, where are you? Do you need anything? And so it is very,
And it is aligned, standard wise.
Yes.
We did take a look at that. Right now, it's one course because we're just beginning this. And we did speak to the parent, so the parent was part of like a training to go
Yes.
through, so they could also see what the child and the expectation is for the child. So we're just beginning, so we don't have a lot what happens after. But the thought when we looked at the emails, they were very pleasant to the student. Hey, what's going on? We haven't seen you today, so I thought that was, very nice. And there's tutoring pieces. And as Dr. Roselle said, anytime during the day, there's help catching up. It's 7 days a week. So on the weekend, they can also have contact with someone. And it can be virtual or it can be just online and they're working on. So there's many different areas you can work with this. It has so much to offer. So far, we were very pleased with it. And I think the parent was also very pleased with it for the child.
Thank you for interjecting. Thank you for that feedback. You also, Dr. Scafto. On the monitoring piece, we can also do periodic assessments, which are in our control.
The assessments are embedded, so when we make the purchase,
Yeah.
it is the entire curriculum, all the instruction, all of the assessment, all of the tools. But we can customize and say, okay, that unit isn't even in our curriculum, we can pull out a whole unit. We can add our final exam in if we wanted to do something like that. So it is, every component of it is completely customizable.
Oh, yeah. So just two quick things. I think this is wonderful. I still have asynchronous classes for my master's degree. And I think it really gives kids that opportunity to be more flexible in the summer. My first question is there a certain limit that they are able to take of these courses over the summer? Because they're not restricted by schedule because it's asynchronous, but obviously we don't want too many.
It's usually been two,
Yes,
for remedial, like if they were taking summer, like
So-
face-to-face courses, but.
I support that. So the reality is they're 60-hour courses. So 2 60-hour courses, 120 hours, that is a large lift. Whether it's one advancement course for 120 hours or it's two, credit recovery courses. So our model's meant to, and that's, the intention with this is to pace and ensure the hours and the time are put in to navigate this with fidelity. And that's the consistent approach we've had.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because similar to the summer advancement, registration process, guidance, there's a approval process for students that are, to make sure that, because we want to make sure they sign up for the right thing. And the students will go with their counselor about their summer school decision. And that's worked pretty well in the past, so.
And then just my other question, and I might be thinking more of school year requirements, but I know when we spoke of policies during COVID about remote learning and credits, is that not applicable to these programs? Or is there anything we need to do to support the programs with our policies?
So this falls under the umbrella of our summer credit recovery. We've always had for years, New Jersey Virtual School is a company.
Okay.
So we have a history and a process that involves signing up and identifying and previewing to the guidance department what courses are going to be taken. We then move into our in-person piece, which was an additional element for a few years. And now we're going to have our element be some version of we call it a virtual learning with support model. So our summer credit piece is something we've had in place, and we do have a process set in place. Everything we have, aligns to what we need. So in terms of the virtual learning piece, that was really a school year, instructional time during the school day, during a 5-day week, 40-week school year piece that the state put in place for us.
All right, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, my closing remarks on this is going to be about the SWOT analysis that you bring up, which I absolutely love. I'm sucker for SWOT analysis. And I know that remedial, action was one of our weaknesses, opportunity, whatever you want to call it. So I am very grateful to everybody that has worked on this to make it a reality that the students that need it are being met where they can do it. So coming in for 60-hour courses for remedial, like you said, is challenging for many, not because they're going on vacation. While I do know that might be the truth, but we are helping them however they need to be helped. And thank you for doing this. This is very exciting. I do not think this needs board approval, right? This is just information for the board.
So this is informational. What we will do is, if there's a need for an additional contract, because we already have approved the expenditures, and again, the costs are significantly less. And once the negotiations are done, it's a student by student license,
Yes,
right?
right.
We at this point, that's what we believe it'll be. Depends on how we settle things in. There is a district license that we could potentially look into in the future if this is something we would expand to the school year, right? To offer things that we don't offer already. But if there's a change in what we already have in place, or there's something, you'll see it on a board agenda for approval.
As it stands right now, we are going to recover the cost that we might have for additional licenses because the students are covering the cost of themselves. So
Correct.
excellent update. Thank you so much, everyone. The last item on the agenda is a dual enrollment at Middlesex College.
So Ms. Druff is going to highlight some of the changes. Yep.
So we are happy to announce that we will have dual enrollment with chemistry next year for AP chemistry. Honors chemistry we still have some logistics that we need to work out that most likely will not be ready for next school year. But we are working to try to get many more dual enrollment courses. So we have Middlesex now for that.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'll just give a little framework. It's maybe not specifically how this evolved, but we have a history of dual enrollment courses with Middlesex, specifically in the business department. So it's introduction to business, marketing. We have a the music theory, AP music theory course. And one of our hurdles in any of the dual enrollment with any university has been their screening process for our instructors, right? They were probably 15 years ago, very liberal and said, pretty much anyone could teach. And as they've evolved as a university, and rightfully so, they have a threshold, and many of the areas require certifications and or degrees that are far exceed, what we often have for our science teachers or math teachers and things like that. One example I'll use for the business department is they require an MBA for anybody that's teaching. We do not require an MBA. We certainly would hire staff, but oftentimes candidates with MBAs, they're, not a part of public education. So we fortunately do have staff with MBAs, and that's how we have been able to maintain that partnership. Similarly, in the sciences, we have a similar issue. We have staff members that have met the threshold, and now we're able to leverage that connection to make this partnership. I think that's the simplest way to explain it. We have submitted tens of our documents, and it very often has nothing to do with our course sequence or the document itself. It really comes down to they're looking for something in an instructor that's very on par with the collegiate level instructor, and there's just not that synchrony sometimes. So that's our biggest barrier oftentimes, and we communicate that to the universities every time I have a chance. I know you've done it, you've met with the president. So in any college that we interact with, that is now becoming the barrier.
The barrier.
Yep, but we were able to leverage this partnership this year, and that's why we're excited.
One at a time, we're going to. I do remember that, I think last year around this time or closer, well, Dr. Higgins had given us this update about how many courses that we've applied for, and that the barrier is teacher qualification. I want to congratulate you. What this means to the parents who are listening is that if your child is taking AP chemistry next year in Monroe High School, you will have the opportunity to save on college tuition, because you can apply for dual enrollment, which is, as a parent, I can share that I've had 2 children take 2 classes each of dual enrollment with Middlesex College in the business classes, and it has saved me a lot of money. And it's a great benefit that the high school is providing, and I'm grateful that we have teachers meeting the qualification one at a time. I'm hoping that we keep adding these. It's an alternate pathway to early graduation in college. So the more credits your child is able to get in high school, the sooner they will graduate out of college. So all that money is saved, and college is not inexpensive.
And it is a goal. It is our administrative goal, superintendent's goal, board goal. It's a goal that we keep on moving forward with.
It's an excellent.
It's an excellent opportunity for anybody that wants to go in that area. And I know that there are some school districts, where I previously worked in Florida. It's a very, very, it's a massive situation where they work directly with the programs, and some children literally graduate high school with an associate's degree.
Sure, yes, Mr. Blackman, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just very quickly, my granddaughter, graduated high school recently, and she's starting as a sophomore at the college. Just to give you an example of that, it's amazing, and, she has the ability to do it, and subsequently, she, I'm just, forgive me, I'm just so proud of that.
Exactly, and that's our goal as a board, to keep supporting you guys in this work, that we give them more and more opportunities to save that year in life and travel the world. One next year of college, and use the money that your parents saved and you saved, and go travel the world. So thank you, everybody, for your hard work.
Can I have one more piece about that?
Please, go
So
ahead.
you guys, for board approval, will see our memorandum of understanding with Middlesex. It's
Yeah.
going to include the AP chemistry as well as some of the other chemistries that we're working on.
Yeah.
It also has the price structure. So just for the sake of the public, a 3-credit course is $135.
Yes.
4-credit course is $135, and a 3-credit course with a lab, which would be inclusive of the chemistry. And the lab piece was another barrier with many of the sciences. They require a certain level of engagement in certain activities that sometimes aren't going to be conducive in a public high school environment. It's more of a collegiate piece. But again, with the instructor that we have leveraged, and their commitment to this university, I think that was one of the barriers that
We're able to do it in our facilities?
for one of the courses, and we're working on, I think that is the barrier with the second course.
With honors.
Is
Okay.
figuring out the lab piece
Okay.
before moving forward. So I just want to give you a preference that at a board level, you're going to see a bunch of courses. The AP is good to go. There's the Gen Chem on here that we're still working through, but we're going to pre-approve it. So when we work it out, we can just roll with it.
Definitely.
And it has instructors, and the instructors, again, they may change, the ones that are listed on here, but that's what they require on their end for approval. But I wanted to highlight for the public's sake, it's $135 for 3 credits. If you look at, I mean, it's $900 a credit in most universities,
Correct.
you know.
Yeah.
So this is just an outstanding opportunity to just get it's not per credit, it's $135 for the course.
And I can give that testimonial as a parent that I have saved all that money, 2 courses that each one of my child took. So it's an opportunity not to be missed, and I hope that we can share this, for people that don't listen into these committee meetings or to our board meeting, if we can make sure that the counselors are really educating our parents and students very well, it would be very helpful. Before we close the meeting, I do want to go back to a couple meetings. One of our discussions on the student achievement piece that Dr. Higgins was here to address, and we started to talk about the National Honor Society, but we ran out of time. We have been in receipt of emails from community members in the last 2 days relevant to the National Honor Society, and I wanted to bring all the supervisors in on that. It's not an agenda item, but I wanted to share with you that based on that discussion, the recommendation from the high school, I know the conversation started with the principals list, and while I made my peace with the principals list based on what other schools are doing, we do understand that too many children are qualifying into the National Honor Society in our high school. We need to raise the standards. We're in agreement on that. But one of the changes being made that has gone through the first read in the policy is that we're taking away the weighted GPA and we're making it a non-weighted GPA. And that is bothering the community. And we've received emails for the last 2 days, just today, before I came to the meeting, I counted 40 emails from community members that are requesting that the policy be changed. You can raise the standard, raise the barrier so fewer students qualify. And right now, I think a majority is qualifying into the National Honor Society. Raise the barriers, but keep the credit for honors and AP classes, use the weighted GPA. So this has come from the community. I, as a curriculum chair, 100% support that. The policy committee has already gone to the first reading, so I believe it's going to be back for a second reading in the next board meeting. But I urge the administration, from a curriculum chair perspective, that we should not make hasty decisions like that could impact our students. National Honor Society is a nationally accredited recognition. We do meet the baseline. We do have the ability and flexibility to change it to suit our high school, but we have to do it in a way that we don't discourage students from taking AP and honors classes. And at this point, that is the fear that the parents have. The community is reaching out because they are fearful that their children will be hesitant to take honors and AP classes. So I wanted to bring that back here as a monologue in the curriculum committee.
And I'm going to comment on that as well.
Yes,
I agree.
Dr. Chen.
So I've received the same probably at this point. At one point, it was only 8, literally, last night. And it's been 50 or 60. I do agree that there should be a high standard. We should always have high standards. But because so many things are weighted, perhaps the standard should be raised numerically, but it should still be weighted. At this juncture, though, the way the policy works, I do not have the ability to remove it from the agenda because it is, the ability is through, the policies come directly to the Board of Education. So it is my recommendation that if it is approved, we can always bring it back for discussion again. If it isn't approved, we could bring it back. I want to compliment Dr. Higgins. I did reach out to him. He is willing to have further discussion on the matter as well as Dr. Lehman. But at this point, I do not have the authority to remove it, so it will remain on the agenda for a second read. And it, of course, it's the board's decision to their vote whether or not it's voted for. But I am in agreement with the public in the regards that I am not in agreement that anything should be lessened, nor is the public. That's not what they're asking, but I am in agreement that perhaps we need to take another, we need to do our due diligence and take further look into the matter and have a further discussion.
And I'm sure all the board members have received the same emails I've
Yep.
received, and I'm hopeful that the board members will take that into consideration when voting for the second read of this policy.
Oh, I was
Yes,
just
I thought
gonna say,
yeah.
I was with people who had been back and forth, and I had actually said, like, let's make this, more competitive, but just maybe in a different way. And, I have a very, direct influence because I have an eighth grader, and
Coming in.
that was
Gonna
the
get that.
first class that was affected, and she was selecting her classes, and we were going back and forth about honors, because she's that kid who probably could challenge herself at certain classes. but, you know, do the benefits and, you know, outweigh the risks, you know, and so we were having that discussion, but because of this, there's been, you know, a lot of discussion when we were at a couple of the events, and, like, if it will be on the agenda, I mean, we can have that discussion at.
Hopefully at the board
And
meeting.
there is, you know, the need, I guess, for additional discussion. I guess we can always discuss the idea of tabling it if that's what the board wanted to do, but. we
And I appreciate that you shared
There.
what other districts are doing in one of your emails, and other districts for NHS. Quite a few districts are using weighting, so we're not, like, for the principals, list, the argument was nobody does weighting. That's not the argument for NHS, so why are we changing a policy that was working? Just raise the barrier, leave it as weighted. So hopefully we will have this discussion in the board meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. That concludes tonight's meeting. We will be starting the finance committee meeting soon.